What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist reporting in from One Mind Syndicate Studios. I got my co-host here,
Gersh one.
and we're at it, answering more questions again in another For the Greater.
This is a video series where we answer the questions left by you, the viewer. If you have a question for us, comment down below. Put a question in front of your question because we get those questions first. Also, we have super thanks. If you want to support the channel, you can hit us up with the super thanks. You could ask us whatever you want, and if you do, we will answer it guaranteed in the next episode, and we'll make it a thumbnail question. This question comes from
Guild of Noobs. The question is, do Space Marines worship the Emperor? What about Primarchs? It also makes you wonder if there are other races outside of humanity that also worship the Emperor, because honestly, the dude is impressive.
a couple questions in that one sentence, but for the most part, most Space Marine chapters do not venerate the Emperor as a god.
Right. Religion in 40K is huge, but at the same time, it should have never been. The Emperor, when he was reclaiming Terra and conquering other, planets for the Imperium, basically said that he wants to put science and logic above religion and belief because he knew that beliefs and religion would poison the minds of humanity and also bolster the Chaos Gods.
Yes. And that's why during the Great Crusade, if you were caught worshiping the Emperor as a god, you were punished. The most famous instance of this happening is the Word Bearers, who were spreading the worship of the god Emperor. And their punishment was the complete destruction of one of their, prime cities?
Was Monarchia, which was Lorgar's favorite city.
Yeah, completely destroyed it. Was it in the book?
Yeah, it was in one of the Horus Heresy novels, I believe. Yeah, so it's got completely razed, and it was to the point where the Emperor psychically made all of the word bearers get on their knees as to show repentance.
Which, if you're trying to prove that you're not a god, and then you force an entire legion to get on their knees, yeah, of course you're not a god. You're just somebody really special.
Yeah, a lot of contradicting things when it comes to the Emperor and religion. Because look at the Imperium now. The veneration of the god Emperor is first and foremost when it comes to every human in the Imperium, and that's also because of Lorgar and his, was it
Divinatus?
Divinatus.
Yeah. So even though Lorgar got punished for worshiping the god Emperor, his I guess through the schemes of Corferon and
Erebus and the Chaos Gods,
his writings on the worship of the Emperor somehow made their way to the Ecclesiarchy, which is the High Lords of Terra and whatnot. And then during the Age of Apostasy, I think, that's when the Lectitio Divinatus was made canon, and it came back, and the worship of the Emperor became a thing, which ironically, worshiping the Emperor as a god is empowering him in the warp, which is why he's going to turn into a Chaos God, or, a god.
Yeah. The fifth Chaos God. And that also is a whole cyclical thing of was he, wasn't he, was there always... Because when it comes to Chaos Gods, it's they always were, but there's always a moment when they're birthed. So, I don't know. The warp is weird like that.
Yeah.
But even though the Emperor is being not praised by most Chaos... or most Space Marines, there is a particular Space Marine chapter that does venerate the Emperor.
There's a few.
Yeah, one of the most well-known is the Black Templars.
Yeah, they're zealots. Their history goes back to Sigismund, one of the Imperial Fist's greatest swordsmen, and I think he was something special, right? The Sword of the Emperor?
Yeah, he became the first Emperor's champion or something.
There you go. Yeah. So his worship eventually manifested into his legion, which I guess you could call it a legion, because the Black Templars don't really have... they don't follow the Codex Astartes. They have basically a bunch of mini chapters called Crusades.
Yeah.
And yes, they all worship the god Emperor as a god.
But at the same time, they hate and kill any and all Psychers.
Yes. Because there should only be the Emperor.
Yeah.
And then also the Salamanders worship the Emperor in a unique way, which is called the Promethean cult. The Promethean cult comes from Nocturne, the home planet of the Salamanders. And that's an example of how the worship of the Emperor is I guess it's a fluid thing. You don't necessarily have to worship him as a certain thing. If the Imperium conquers a planet and they already have an established religion, the Emperor is somehow intertwined into that religion, which is why in the Promethean cult, He's seen as a god, even though the Promethean cult existed even before the Great Crusade. Same thing with the Omnissiah.
Yes, I was just about to bring that up. Mars and the whole veneration of the machine god is basically veneration of the Emperor.
Yeah, exactly. So then when we look at the Primarchs, because that was part of your second question, do the Primarchs worship the Emperor? Gilliman does not.
Yeah, no, it's not like a worship thing. It's mostly like a respect slash, that's my dad.
Yeah.
Like this, the Emperor is the progenitor of the Primarchs, and they see him as the father, the lord, the king, the leader, the war master, and basically to even think about going against him is like one of the worst things you can do.
Yes. Also, so in the book, I forget what book, but when we follow Gilliman during the Indomitus Crusade, we see how he sees the imperial cult and he sees the ecclesiarchy. He sees the bishops that are following the crusade, and he puts up with it. Mm-hmm. And the reason he puts up with it is because he understands that there's a separation between the Adeptus Astartes and the humans. And if the humans want to worship him, he's not going to step in and try to say like, no, because at the end of the day, that's not his place.
Right.
And also he had a conversation with the God Emperor, and we don't really know what was said, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like inferred that Gilliman's like, yeah, just kind of protect them. Like, don't step in and make things worse.
Yeah. So in that conversation, the Emperor was probably like, gave him the kind of like, hey, brush it off. Mm-hmm. They're going to be assholey and they're probably going to touch some kids, but oh well.
That's all religion when it comes to the Imperium, because man, when you look at like the apostles and Goj Vandire, like almost every religious aspect is just a piece of shit. Yeah. Goj Vandire used the Emperor as a means to take power for himself, created the Brides of the Emperor, which eventually became the Sisters of Battle. And that's another interesting thing too, that the Sisters of Battle are so invigorated with the hope, the might of the Emperor, that they're able to be given miracles, things that should not happen, that the Emperor is giving them. Like, that God, does that confirm that he's a god?
No, it confirms that they have one of those little devices called Rosariuses, but it's really just STC technology from the golden age of technology that helps them regenerate.
More proof to say that the Emperor is indeed the machine god, the Omnissiah.
Yeah, I guess that would be true. But even though the Emperor didn't create that, that comes from humanity's golden age.
I mean, look at the golden throne that he's sitting on. That came way before humanity, way before the Emperor.
The theory of the golden throne, well, my theory of the golden throne is that it's actually Old One technology.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I've been leaning more towards, because, I mean, they're frogs.
Yeah. Well, that and they're psychic beings, right?
Yeah.
And they're really powerful psychic beings, and we know that there's a warp portal within Earth. Or no, the moon.
The moon,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. So then, more than likely, that throne was there to facilitate the moon's portal. I shouldn't say to the warp, to the webway.
There you go.
Which is really, really important, because the webway was created by the old ones. Which is weird, because on Mars, you have the Necrons with the Void Dragon. So who knows what happened, or who knows what happened during the War in Heaven? If Games Workshop ever wants to create that, like that story of like the War in Heaven, and this is probably what happened, like, well, eon 60 million years ago on Terra and Mars, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, because that's going to make the Horus Heresy look like a little skirmish, because this is like on galaxy-wide, proportions.
Yeah. And then you have a third part to this question, which is, do other Xenos worship the Emperor?
When it comes to other alien species, most of the time the Imperium was like, kill them first, ask questions later. So generally, I would assume most Xenos don't even know of the Emperor being a thing. When we look into the Great Crusade and how they were bringing in other planets into the Imperial fold, they were basically forced to abandon all beliefs and take the Emperor as their new god or a new follower. So I guess that could go to say that maybe Xenos, especially if they're like psychically aware, might have seen the Emperor as like a being in the warp and were like known to his presence, but not to the point of maybe like believing in him that way.
Yeah, and those are for minor Xenos. If we look at the major Xeno factions, of course they're gonna know who the Emperor is because the Imperium is there. So like the Eldar see him as a powerful psyker, and a lot of people like actually try to help him. He was approached by the Cabal.
Yep.
The Cabal. There's a lot of members of What are the Eldar high-ranking dudes?
Farseers.
Yeah, Farseers that make up the Cabal, and they obviously went to the Emperor and were like, "Hey, like, do you think you could help us on our fight against Chaos?"
And one of the interesting things about the Cabal is that there were also human members in it, even perpetuals.
Pius, right? What's his name?
Saint Alanius Pius.
That's so cool.
Yeah. How's he a saint? Well, that's
the
because
Catholic Church.
Yeah, he was a Catholic believer.
Yeah. So the orcs see the Emperor too as like this super, like basically the OP fighter of humanity, and it's the smart ones anyways, like Gatsku, Magork, Thraka, and like WAAAGH and stuff.
Yeah.
Your average orc is not gonna, like, they're just gonna be like, Umis worship some super powerful guy. That's all. And no, if all the orcs thought that the Emperor could resurrect, he would not resurrect. That is a question that we get a lot, and I'm just gonna answer that right now.
Yeah.
I don't think the Necrons would know who the Emperor is because they were asleep.
Yeah. For the most part, the Silent King knows of like Dante and Sanguinius for some reason, because I'm pretty sure he gave Dante one of like the death masks of Sanguinius. So there's probably more there that we'll get in different
Books and stuff.
Would it be a book? Yeah, because I don't think they'll ever make that into like an edition, like campaign book.
It
would
seems like too specific.
It would be a novel.
Yeah. And then the Tau Empire, based on the Watercast and how they diplomatically try to like get into the minds of humanity during like the colonization process, I wouldn't be surprised if they did know, because actually, aren't there stories of the Tau Empire basically annexing like an imperial planet and then saying like, you guys can continue to worship the Emperor?
Yeah. Basically, keep doing what you guys are doing. Just know that we're gonna want stuff from you. You got to pay your tithes. You gotta fight for us, but you guys can still keep believing what you want to.
So it's basically like how our political leaders see other nations that worship some type of religion.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, just keep paying us.
Yeah. And those are all the questions that he had.
Yep.
This question was so good, it took us the entire episode.
Because it was like 4 questions in one.
Thank you guys so much. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but at the end of it all, like when you look at Space Marines and like 40K and all that, there is heavy religious, godlike stuff. Like even just look at their architecture, the naming of their weapons. You've got cherubs, especially if you look at Space Marine 2, you already see just how heavily religion is influencing the setting, the atmosphere of this grim, dark universe. So I think that's one of the cool things that like other sci-fi IPs where it's all like science fiction and stuff, and it's like, no, this one has like grim, dark religious aspects to it.
Yeah, because the Space Marine at the end of the day is just a warrior monk.
Yes.
So, yeah. And those were the questions for today. If you guys have more questions for us, please comment down below. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel, and we'll talk tomorrow.
That's right. Keep those questions coming, guys, and so will we. As always, it's been the Sound Alchemist,
Gershwan.
and we are out.
Always used to put my freedom first in any situation.